Hi there and welcome to Yarnspirations. I'm Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life Publishing, and in this video we're going to take a look at all the tips and tricks you need to make our little friend here, Colin the Chick. Now Colin is made using our Red Heart amigurumi kit, and everything you need except your own two hands and a pair of scissors is included in the kit. You'll have your pattern, your stuffing, the main color of yarn, yarn for the beak, yarn for the embroidery, a locking stitch marker, a yarn needle, and of course your handy dandy crochet hook to get it all going. So let's jump right in. We're going to start on the piece that is Colin's head and body. The first thing we're going to do is to make a magic ring, and to do that we're going to take the cut end of the yarn, we call that the tail, put it over your hand, take it over your index finger, give yourself a little space between the index finger and the middle finger, under your middle finger, over your index finger again, and you have this X. So I'm going to take my hook, go under this leg of the X, grab this one and pull it through, and now I'm all ready to crochet. Now you want to make sure you're working with your working yarn. That's the yarn that's attached to the skein, and you didn't accidentally get your tail yarn, because I have done that before. Now it says chain 1, 6 single crochet in ring. So we're going to single crochet like we always would, but we're inserting our hook in the ring instead of in a stitch. So we're going to go in the ring, yarn over and draw up a loop. I have 2 loops on my hook, 1, 2. I'm going to yarn over and draw it through. So that's 1 single crochet, and we need 6, so I have to make 5 more. Insert my hook in the ring, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. So I'm going to keep going till I have all 6 of my single crochets in there. Okay, we have our 6 single crochets, so I'm going to take my tail yarn and I'm going to pull it. And you can see I'm holding on to the single crochets that I made. What you can't see is I'm not pulling, I'm pulling tightly, but I'm not holding on too tightly, because that yarn has to travel through the base of the stitches. So now I have them all in a ring, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I want to take my locking stitch marker and put it in the last stitch of the round. And every round that I make, I'm going to move that locking stitch marker up, because if you don't know where you're going to begin and end, you're going to have a hard time making your little friend exactly the way you want to. For round 2, it says increase in each stitch around, and to increase, all we're going to do is put 2 single crochets in the same single crochet. Now I will say, getting this first one is a little fiddly because we pulled so tight on that thread, but it gets a lot easier after that. So that's my first stitch in that first stitch, and now I'm going to put a second stitch in that first stitch. So for any increase, we're putting 2 stitches in one. Since we're going to do this all the way around, we started with 6 single crochet, and at the end of this round we're going to have 12, because we took each one and turned it into 2. I'm coming up to my last stitch of the first round. I'm going to take that marker out, and in this instance I'm going to put 2 single crochets in that single crochet because it was an increase, and then I'm going to grab that stitch marker and pop it right back in. Now for round 3, it says single crochet in next stitch, increase in next stitch, and that is in parentheses, and it says to do that 6 times. So we're going to single crochet in the next stitch, and then 2 in the next one. 1, 2. And we're going to do this all the way around. 1 in the next one, and then 2 in the next one. For round 4, it says single crochet in next stitch, increase in next stitch, so that's what we did before, And now it says single crochet in each of next 2 stitches, increase in next stitch. So from here on out, all the way up through round 16, all you're going to do is alternate single crochets and increase stitches, so that's 2 stitches in 1 stitch. And all you're going to do is follow along with the pattern, because every round's going to be a little different, but there's nothing going on that you haven't already learned how to do. So go ahead and work up through round 16, and then we'll come back and look at the next section. So I have completed the work up through round 16, and I wanted to show you what that looks like. We're here with our completed friend. So you can see we started at the top. We had some increase rounds. We had some work even rounds, and work even rounds are when you neither increase nor decrease. And then we had a few more increasing rounds. The other thing I wanted to point out, I took this opportunity while I could reach inside the work when it was still a little flat to weave in that first end, because I'm not going to be able to do it later. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to work even some more. We're going to put 6 rounds even, that's rounds 17 to 22. And then we're going to come back for round 23 on camera, and we're going to talk about the single crochet decrease. Here we are. I have completed round 22. So you have our head and then our little increase for the body. And I've already started round 23. It says single crochet in each of the next 7 stitches, single crochet decrease. So I have already single crocheted in each of the next 7 stitches because I wanted to get right to the decrease, which is the interesting part for you guys. So I'm going to insert my hook in the next stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop. I have 2 loops on my hook, and then I'm going to insert my hook in the next stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop. Now I have 3 loops on my hook, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to yarn over and draw through all 3. So I have taken, I'm sorry, I'm at a weird angle, so I split my plies a little bit, but it's because of the weird angle at which I am stitching. So I've taken these 2 stitches and I have turned them into 1. So let's take a look at that again. So we're going to single crochet in each of the next 7 stitches. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to insert my hook in the next stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop, and in the next stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through 3. So that is my single crochet decrease. And I am going to work rounds 23 and 24, let's see, and 25 and 26. So the next 4 rounds have decreases in them. The spacing changes from round to round, but that's okay. And then we're going to talk about the stuffing. Here we are at the end of round 26. I have 30 single crochets left in my round, and you can see that the work is starting to draw in. We're getting around to the bottom here so we can close up the bottom. Now the instructions tell us that this is a good time to start putting the stuffing in. And the reason is you want to be able to put the stuffing in while you can still reach into the furthest depths of your amigurumi friend. So here is your little stuffing package, and when you open it up, it's going to expand. So don't worry that you don't have enough stuffing. Once you can see it's already doubled in size. Once the air hits it, you've got plenty of stuffing to make your little friend. So I'm going to grab it out of here. And what I like to do, I grab a little handful at a time, and I like to sort of physically fluff it up. I'll tear it into smaller chunks, make sure there's no big chunks in there, and I'm going to start stuffing my chick. Now this one is not too difficult because there's no little parts in there, but again, this is a great opportunity to make sure that you can get to the stuffing into all of the parts of your amigurumi. And then once that's done, we are going to do 3 more rounds, and then I'll come back and we will close up the bottom. You can see I have my chick stuffed pretty full, and as this closes off, it will, as this closes up the circle, it's going to force some more of that stuffing in there. I do want to leave just a tiny bit aside because I'm going to use that when I stuff my wings. Okay, I have finished round 29, and I'm going to cut my yarn, leaving a decent sized tail for sewing. And I'm going to go ahead and thread that onto the tapestry needle. All right, I'm going to take it through my working loop to make sure that that is good and secure. Close that up. And now I'm going to weave in and out of these stitches. I'm going to go down in one, up in the next. Down in the next one, up in the next one. I'm going to do this all the way around and pull it very tight so that the circle closes up at the bottom. And then all I'm going to have to do is secure and weave in that end. So I'm just going to weave it in super tightly to make sure that it doesn't come out. Yeah, let's see, we could do one more and come back to the beginning. So I'm going to pull that closed. Weaving in at the end, it's more of an art than a science, and you're not going to see very much of it because it's definitely on the bottom. But I'm just taking a couple of extra stitches to make sure that my closure is nice and tight. And then I'm just going to weave in that end by running my needle up behind, sort of through the middle of the stitch, but keeping it towards the back of the work so it doesn't show. And then the last thing I like to do, so I've gone through some stitches here to make sure this is nice and tight, but the last thing that I like to do is put my needle down and let it come up a couple of inches away and pull it out and trim it close. And the reason I like to do that is it keeps that cut tail inside where the stuffing is, and it's less likely to pull out. So here's my little chick, and we're ready to give him a little character. So the next thing we're going to do is make the wing. To make our wing, we're going to begin once again with our magic ring. So just to go over that again, I'm going over my index finger, under my middle finger, back over my index finger to make my X. I'm going under this leg, gonna grab this leg and pull it through, and I am all ready to crochet. So just like we started the head and the body, we're going to chain 1 and 6 single crochet in the ring. So 1, and just like we did before, we're going to grab that tail yarn and give it a nice tight tug to make our stitches go into a circle for our first round, and we are going to take our locking stitch marker and mark the last stitch of the round. Now for when we made the head and body, our increases were evenly spaced around, but for the wing, they tend to all be in the same place to give us a different shape. 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I have my 6 stitches here. Moving on to round 2, it says increase in next stitch. So remember that increase is just 2 single crochets in the same stitch. That's 1, 2, and now it says single crochet in each of the next 4 stitches. And then we're going to increase in the last stitch. So once again, got to get that locking stitch marker out of the way. Put 2 stitches in that last one. And put the locking stitch marker back in the last stitch that we made. So we had 6 stitches, now we have 8 because we had 2 increases. Now for round 3, it says increase in next stitch, single crochet in each of next 6 stitches, and increase in next stitch. So we're doing the same thing we did before. We're increasing in the first stitch and the last stitch, and just working even in the rest of the stitches. Here is our little wing beginning, and you can see the increases are all to one side because we have them in the first stitch and the last stitch. So we're going to work 3 rounds even. We have 10 single crochets now because we had 8 and we increased 2. And then for round 7, we're going to do some decreasing, and then we will trim our yarn and get ready to sew it on. At the end of round 7, I'm going to go ahead and take that stitch marker out because I'm not going to need it anymore. I'm going to make a single crochet decrease in those last 2 stitches. Yarn over and draw through all 3. And then it says fasten off, leaving about a 10-inch tail. We want just to make sure that we have enough yarn to sew the wing on. And it also says to stuff it about 3/4 of the way full. So I'm going to take just a little bit of that stuffing that I reserved. Doesn't take very much because it's a tiny little wing. And I'm just going to stuff it in there. And if I have a hard time getting my fingers in there, I can use the soft end of the crochet hook to help me get the stuffing inside where it belongs. I think I tried to put a little too much in there. So we're going to stuff that about 3/4 of the way full, and then we're going to sew it on. And you will of course make 2 wings because we want our little bird to be able to fly. For the beak, I'm going to start it the way we started our other pieces, but I'm using my white yarn. So I have my magic ring. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to make 6 single crochet in the ring and mark the end. And then for my second round, I will put an increase in each stitch, taking me to 12 stitches, and then I'll fasten off once again, leaving a nice long tail because we want to be able to sew it on later. For the assembly, the first thing I'm going to do is sew on that beak that we just made. It tells you to position the beak between rounds 11 and 12 and sew across the diameter. What I like to do is use my locking stitch marker to mark which round that I want to put my little appendage on, and that helps me know where I want to set it. And it doesn't matter where in the round you put it, because until we put the eyes on, our little friend here doesn't have a front or back. So I use my stitch marker to mark the area between the 11th and 12th round. I'm going to hold my little beak right there, and I'm just going to go ahead and back stitch that into place. Now I will say I don't have a ton of yarn left, and so I think what I might have done, I think I should have made my magic circle a little smaller. So that's a little note for you guys when you're making your magic circle, to keep it pretty small so that you don't run out of yarn on the other end. And again, I'm not going to run out. I have plenty, but I think I would have left myself a little extra room if I had made my magic circle a little tighter. I do love these. It's really, they're a lot of fun to do. When I've got my last stitch in, I'm going to do what I did earlier after weaving in the ends at the bottom, is I'm going to run the needle up through the back of the stitches. I don't want to see the white yarn coming behind the yellow stitches, but I want to make sure it's inside the stitch, in the back of the stitch, so that it holds tight. And again, I'm going to run my needle through the stuffing and let it come out the other side, so that if I do have any issues with yarn tails pulling out, that tail will be deep inside the stuffing and it won't be able to pull out. Okay, don't need my stitch marker here anymore. And here's my little beak. The next thing I want to do is sew on a wing. Now I used my little stitch marker trick again to mark the exact area where I want my wing to go, and I've squished the top so it's flat. So I'm going to hold it where I want it. Get my marker out of the way. And for these kinds of things that I'm sewing on, I want to make sure I grab a stitch on the body. And then I want to make sure that I go through all the legs of the stitches across the top of the wing. Grab a stitch on the body. Grab all the legs of the stitch at the top of the wing. So I'm going to do that all the way across. And then I'm going to weave that tail in just like we did the other ones by taking it in the back of the work, making sure it runs through a stitch to hold it tight. I will also say I tend to do this a little bit loosely and then go back and tighten it up in case I have stitched someplace incorrectly or I don't like it, I need to take it out. I want to be able to take it out. So if you can see, it's kind of hard to see because it's all the same color. Now that my wing is where I want it to be and I'm happy with the stitches, now I can go back with the tip of my needle and tighten those stitches up and then give it a little tug at the end. And now that wing, yep, he flew away. That wing is exactly where I want it and the stitches are all hidden neatly, but I didn't pull it super tight until I was sure it was where I wanted it to be. The next thing we're going to do is give him a little top knot. For our little top knot, it says to cut a strand of the main color, fold it in half and attach to the top of the head with the crochet hook. I used the leftover from sewing. I didn't even need to go back and cut more. So what I want to do, I made my magic ring super tight, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to pull up a fold, so I folded it halfway. So I've pulled it through. I'm going to get rid of that hook before I drop something. I'm going to take my two cut ends and pull it through the fold and give it a tug. Then I'm going to untwist all these plies or strands of yarn. It's a little more than he needs, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and untwist all these so it looks like a little chick feather. And once again, if it's too long, after I get it all untwisted, if I feel like it looks too long, I can give it another little haircut, make it a little shorter. And if you've got some little snippets of the main color of yarn hanging around, after you've done your sewing up, you could even give some more feathers up there if you wanted to. The very last piece I have to embroider are Colin's eyes, and I want them on round 11, so either side of our little beak here. And it says to put 7 stitches between them, but you can sort of eyeball it up and see how you would like it to be. So when we worked with this yarn at the end of an action, like sewing something on, we wove it behind the stitches after we had done all the work. But for the black, because I don't want to leave a knot anywhere, I'm going to have to do that same thing at the beginning. It's just going to keep the black yarn anchored. I think I want to go right here. So again, it's very difficult to see on camera, but I'm sort of wiggling that needle up through the stitches because I wanted to go through the stitches, not just behind the stitches. I want it to be tightly anchored, but I don't want it to show on the right side of the work. And it's really easy to accidentally pull this all the way out, and you don't want to. So pull it just a little gently to get it started. And we have plenty of black yarn, and I want a nice bold eye, so I'm going to go in and out of there 2 times. And then I'm going to scoot over to the other side. Again, you don't want to pull this too tight. I love when they get their faces and their little appendages on. They have so much character. It's a shame I hate my job, isn't it? I just love making these little things. They're so cute. So there's one strand for the eyeball, and there's a second one for a nice bold eye. And once again, we're going to weave it in and out, in and out. So it's behind, it's through the stitches, but it's towards the back of the work. So that I know that it's anchored, but I don't see it. And then bring it through the stuffing. Give it a little tug and a little trim so that tail is well hidden inside of the stuffing. And here is my new friend, Colin. Well, and here is my former friend, Colin. So thank you so much for joining me here at Yarnspirations. Once again, I'm Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life Publishing. I hope you had a great time making Colin the Chick, and we have all kinds of other kits for you to try out. So once you've got the hang of one, they're like having a snack. You can't eat just one. You're going to keep coming back and doing more and more and more. So I hope you had a great time. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you again here real soon. Bye-bye.